Hi, everyone. My name is Marcela Renteria. I'm going to read it because I have only 4 or 5 minutes. So I am the executive director of the Harvard Chile Regional Office, which is part of the David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies here at Harvard. It is called Dr. Class. Today is a meaningful day. We have an amazing coincidence, though I don't think there is such a thing as a coincidence, because things always happen for a reason. Today is October 10, and today is the World Mental Health Day. I don't know if everybody knows about that. And that is the International Day for Mental Health Education, Awareness, and Advocacy against Social Stigma. It was first celebrated 21 years ago at the World Federation for Mental Health Initiative, with members and contacts in more than 150 countries. Right now, the medical school, there are so many events. Everywhere is happening this mental health issue. And we just choose this day and magic happens. Also, many events are happening this week. It's Harvard Worldwide Week. And I am very proud to present our chosen initiative to showcase Harvard's concrete work in Chile, where we are. This event is also part of the Mahindra series, Pedagogies for Life, with Doris and Fawaz. You come to hear 3 panels, one on collaborative systems for solving complex social challenges, preventing mental illness in Chile. You will hear about public policy. You will have authorities that will share what they have learned about this initiative. Then you will also have a panel. We will have a coffee break then at 5. And then we go to the second panel with private sector, and then the last one on actual interventions in Santiago. As you can see, we have different groups that has been collaborating. We will start at 4. We didn't start at 4. We will finish at 6:30. We will finish 6:45. Each panel will take time for Q&A. We are recording this event and will most likely distribute it online for educational purposes. We will decide if we publish it or not at the end. And all the presentations are in English. Okay, I want to thank the Advanced Leadership Program at Harvard, particularly because I received a phone call around 2 years ago from my colleague Claudia Bobadilla when she was participating in the program. She has a project in mind and called me to see how we could do this program with Harvard in Chile. The work was in 2 comunidades, in Maipú and Peñalolén. And thanks to that, there was also another ally member, Eduardo Chadwick. So without these 2 people, we wouldn't be here, because they were the creators of this in the Harvard classrooms at ALI. I want to also thank our faculty leadership, Fawaz from the School of Engineering and Doris from Humanities, for the effort to share their knowledge and commitment to Chile. No project I can do without a Harvard faculty behind. So without them, we wouldn't be here. I also want to thank Benjamin, our alumni, because he's keeping the flame alive day by day. I want to thank the trust of 2 public service leaders in Chile, Mayor Carolina Leitao and Thomas Bobadanic, the municipalities of Peñalolén and Maipú, respectively, because knowing how busy they are, it is an honor to have them here with us. They are spending 3 days here of collaboration and work. And Mario Valdivia, because we worked before in Recupera Chile, disaster recovery, and inviting him to participate was fantastic. I want to thank all the institutions connected to the coalition and their representatives who traveled from Santiago to share their experiences. I'm going to mention the institutions: Universidad Concepción, Data Observatory, the CAP Group Company, Chadwick Winery, Chilean Swiss Chamber of Commerce, CNN Chile, Fundación Puente Social, the Empower Program, Cultural Agent, Mahindra Center, and especially my center, Dr. Class. I want to quote Harvard Business Professor Brian Trelstad, chair of the ALI program. I mentioned to him in an email the importance of having one Harvard. One Harvard was the message from Drew Faust, former president. We needed to find more collaboration across the schools, fostering interdisciplinary connections for a common purpose, and focusing on something much bigger than us, than each center, each little cell, where trust is essential. We, global offices abroad, are looking for partnerships worldwide, finding talents everywhere, making meaning, bringing Harvard students, attracting faculty to work, enhancing experiential learning, and making us the proper connectors that will allow us to solve complex social challenges. He said, I believe ALI members are global cross-pollinators of the university, and I believe that too. If I have more time, I will thank each member of the coalition that we have spent time here in Chile or in Harvard, but I don't have. But I want to know that I invite you to listen, to learn about recovery and healing as individuals and as a society. Thank you all for coming. And without further ado, I leave you with Claudia Bobadilla. She's board business member, founder of Puente Social, senior fellow, Harvard LII, and the creator of this coalición de impacto de salud mental. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I will say it's a great joy to be here. So happy to see many familiar faces and so many friends supporting us from the US, from everywhere, and to see the Chilean delegation. It's just like a dream. For those that haven't been able to travel from Chile, it's at least 18 hours, considering the delays and connections. So thank you very much for coming and being here today. I will try to emphasize why today is important. We start working on this social high impact coalition on mental health prevention 1 year ago, in August 2022. And we started with the support of two key persons here from Harvard, Professor Fawaz Jabal and Professor Doris Sommer, and Ben, a student at this moment and now graduated. And then Eduardo, as well, a ally member, decided also to start a program on mental health, focus on children. We were working on women. So we joined forces and we connected the two mayors that we'll present in a few minutes. The mayor from Maipú, Tomás Bodanovich, and the mayors from Peñalolén, and the president as well of the whole Association of Municipalities in Chile, Carolina Leitao. The process has been very interesting because what we have been able to realize is something that we know from Professor Jabal at the first class of ALI about complex systems, that almost every challenge that we are facing globally or locally are complex systems. So we don't, it's not enough to use the old practices or the old paradigms to address these complex social challenges if we want to have some success. And some success in the case of mental health means to have a response now to the pain that people has if they're suffering some kind of mental or emotional distress. So what we understand that if we need something different to work for addressing social complex challenges, has to be related in the way how we combine a diverse, heterogeneous team that work as the complex system as well. So I will show you a figure a diagram, which is this one, which is very eloquent, because on the bottom you have the map of the complex system, in this case, mental health. We did this mapping in both communities, in Maipú and Peñalolén, with Professor Fawaz and Ben. You can see that there is not just one cause that is provoking the mental health challenges that we're facing in Chile, and I am certainly that we're facing everywhere, unfortunately. So for addressing this complex challenge, we build that on the top a collaborative system that we call the High Social Impact Coalition. That means to put together dynamically and systemically a group of actors, people that can work on the needs that the challenge needs. So both systems work together in a dynamic and systemic way. That means someday could be 3 universities, someday can be 1 because we have solved one of the issues, another member can come in. So the law, there is no big barriers for entry, and you can leave the coalition when the problem is solved. What are the main pillars or the key pillars of this coalition? First, we share a common purpose. This is the strong tie that we have in this coalition. And the strong purpose and tie is we want to solve mental health illness in our country and preventing not having mental health illness acting before, at the beginning with children at the schools, and Professor Sommer will talk about that, and how arts can be a key force for addressing this challenge on children, and also trying to promote better well-being and better behavior at every level, at the community level, at the corporate level, at every level, including all of us. So this is one pillar, the shared purpose. Second, trust. Marcela mentioned the trust, which is very important. This is what we are putting together, our trust on each other for building this coalition. Third, the creation of knowledge. Reason why to be here, and thank you very much to you all professors that opened this space and this beautiful room for hosting us, because the creation of knowledge in a dynamic way is essential for having science-based evidence and solutions based on science that we can apply in the communities. We have to be very responsible. We are not playing with something. We are talking about the life of people. And data. Data is another key pillar of this project, and all of the measures and tests before and after the intervention are key for having a good understanding of what is working or not. Also, collaboration. Everyone, and I feel so grateful to you, Marcela, and all of you. I am not mentioning each one because I don't want to spend my time, and giving you, the next speakers, the time, is everyone is collaborating in the most generous way. It's very impressive. Every one of us has been involved in projects, and we know how difficult it is to get along a project. This project, from the first moment, has had every support that we need. Like magically, appears the professor, appears the corporate sector, appears a specialist like Mario Valdivia from the Universidad Concepción, the mayors and the community also there. And also, not forget, never, this is not an academic program, this is not a municipality program, this is not a business program, this is not a civil society program, this is a program that has to consider the grassroots experience and knowledge and intelligence. So we have done a lot of work with the grassroots. That means to include in our team, and you see there, all of the people from the communities. We have spent, and the professor from Harvard University has traveled to Chile, and they interview every person, the school teachers, the mothers, the fathers, the grandmothers, every person that is involved and struggling with this issue has been interviewed by the professor for getting their experience and their intelligence and smartness and how they deal with this problem at the local base. Finally, you can see here what I am saying now, that we start with Maipú Coalition and then the Peñalolén Coalition. And it was obvious that we have to merge both coalitions. So now it's one coalition that includes these two municipalities. One thing which is important, and we'll be closing with that, Chile has 19 million people. Maipú borough has 1 million people. Peñalolén borough has 300,000. So the numbers of this coalition are important, and the impact is important as well, because it's one of our goals to have impact in Chile as well. Maybe I put more people in your community, but a little bit less. And also, you will see here the diversity of the members of the coalition. And again, what is the big glue and tie here is we share the same purpose, including the media partner, which is here, and I would like to thank you, Jorge Keri, because they have been supporting, spreading on TV, on the prime time, what does it mean to have well-being, emotional well-being, and mental health well-being for Chilean society. So thank you very much. You will hear my voice a lot this afternoon. So sorry, but we will be introducing every speaker. And again, thank you very much. You will see during this journey, this afternoon is like a journey. You will see on real life what that it means a coalition. Every people will put a part of this puzzle in the most beautiful way. And thank you all for attending this afternoon and this presentation. Thank you. So now I am extremely honored. I am biased. This is my favorite professor from ALI, Professor Fawaz Jabal, former dean of the engineering school, a physicist, but like Da Vinci character, also an artist, and one of the most generous person that has committed his willing and his time for supporting this coalition from the first day. Professor Fawaz.
So, as Claudia mentioned, I'm not a social scientist, and I'm not a really social worker either. My background is in physics. I taught engineering, and I still continue teaching engineering. And when Claudia came to talk with me about the issues in general, I was really fascinated. I couldn't imagine that we'll have a group like you folks here sitting a year later to do what we're trying to do. A lot of what I'll be talking about already been said. And I'm glad in a way, because that means their students are passing the exam. So this is supposed to be a joke. So I learned to announce my jokes, otherwise nobody smiles. So anyway, it is one of the challenges that we encounter in life. And I did some work. I teach some courses where I try to teach students how to communicate, how to work together, and how to try to address things in engineering beyond just the technical ideas. And I believe this is essential for everything we're doing. So what I want to do is really addressing the challenges in general as a problem of isolation, mental health, of course, and suicide, and all of these within the context of system, meaning in this case here, social systems. So systems are in science in general, we talk a lot about systems, and we think about them as, they have particular characteristics and so on. And in time, I came to realize that actually the best systems are the human systems because they can illustrate everything we try to teach in engineering. So this is what Claudia showed before. And this is not our drawings, actually, I picked it up. But in a way, it talks about what is social systems. It says social systems really composed of many elements, and these elements are interacting, they affect each other in a nonlinear way. What I mean by nonlinear way is if you touch one, something else will happen, sometimes little, sometimes a lot. And then there is emergent behaviors, things that you don't expect will emerge, and you don't think about it. So they're very difficult to predict, very difficult to control. And it's not possible to understand the system by looking at parts and say, let me understand this, and then put it all together. It never worked and will never work. Because the interaction between the systems is so strong normally that we don't understand really how we can analyze the system. But they are adaptive. Most of human systems are adaptive, so you can put some feedback loops, such as you encourage things and make things better. In general, this is a little of a lecture to explain what we mean by systems. There are natural systems. We talked about the climate. The climate is a natural system, the ecosystem in general, and the human body is a system. And unfortunately, when we treat diseases, we treat them as if they are separate from each other. And we try to solve them by doing some very narrow, interventions. On the other hand, there are the internet. The internet is a huge system. Transportation, networks, global financial markets, all of these are systems. The important thing is to realize none of these systems are in isolation. They're all interacting with each other, which makes it a mess. So where would you start, kind of? And my trial here is to talk about how you try to think about these where would you start? Kind of? At one time, I did some work a long time ago on the United Nations Sustainable Goals, and there are 17 goals. And if you take every piece of these goals and try to analyze it, you find them all interacting with each other. So no wonder we're still sitting in the same place trying to figure out what to do. But the important things here is that, and Claudia mentioned it, is that none of these systems can be understood by a single discipline. You really have to look at it from very broad perspective, from some of it engineering, some of it is psychology, sociology, business, economics, all the above interface and interact with these systems. So that's really what makes it complex, these different disciplines. So by definition, you are not going to be able to figure out how to solve it by having expertise. An expert in one area will help. We need expertise, but not in single domain, in many, many domains. So, but we are poised now, 2021, and going forward to 23, 24, we don't know where we are. And when we are poised to see that we have really ongoing challenges, and these challenges continue to snowball like you wouldn't believe it. Part of it is that we have cognitive overload, meaning there's so much information and things happen very, very fast. You just don't have time to process. Decision-making is really tough because there are so many variables and so many potential outcomes. You just don't know where you want to start. When you think about isolation, normally in the old times, you can understand isolation reasonably well and try to analyze it reasonably well. Now you can't. Why? It's a loss of human interactions or connections. Well, how do you think about it? Well, there are many things. One of them is that people are not talking to each other. People are not close to each other. People are having this, what I call it here, digital isolation. We're really digitally, we're isolated from each other. Yes, we have social network and we talk through such social network and so on, but there is nothing like when I look at you, you look at me, and I talk together. Because the dialogue is there. If there is no dialogue, there is no connections, and there is isolation. And more we see right now a lot of data and a lot of information showing that these social networks, if anything, they're creating more isolation. Of course, there is economic system now changed in an incredible way, constantly getting into this business of what's called gig economy, where you have part-timers. Everything is part-time, which means that you don't have stability in your job and your income. That has tremendous impact on humanity. Last but not least is the question of how you are living in cities. The cities becoming center of economy, which is important and very, very critical, but at the same time is dividing us into areas and regions, and there is very much difference interactions in cities than if you were living in the smaller cities or smaller communities. So when I look at mental health and complexity of mental health, of course, there are system complex. It is a complex system in a sense. Yes, there are stresses of navigating the world. Yes, there are issues with the healthcare systems that we need to navigate, understand, and be able to learn how to deal with it. There is another issue, bureaucracy, stigma, inadequate resources. It goes without saying, no matter how many doctors you have, we need more. How many resources you have, you need more. You will never be able to solve this problem. But there are also what I call it systemic challenges, which is lack of, like I said, these resources, but also there is this question about stigma. If someone is mentally ill or has a mental issue, there is readily very strong stigma against this person, which is really terrible. Now, I am going to concentrate by saying isolation is a risk factor. Once we have isolation, not finding links, it creates anxiety, it creates depression, it creates potentially suicide. There is a vicious cycle here too. People who have mental health issues, they end up being also isolated and end up isolating themselves from the rest of the world. So you could see there is a feedback into this one here. So what's our role as society, as a community? Community is extremely important on the individual well-being. When we think of systems, whether they are at workplaces or otherwise, they are sources of either exacerbating or elevating feeling of isolation. Either way, both ways. Of course, there is ethical consideration that we need to build our interaction with these complex system within ethical implications, such as we need to have transparency, accountability, no biases, and so on. Okay, so now I'm going to go and say a few words about some of these that we need to address on different levels. For instance, one level is the community and individuals. It's important to understand that the community has responsibility, but there is something about collective responsibility. And this is where I really want to emphasize the collectivity of the responsibility. We need to share resources and avenues for helping. We need to share duties. We all have duties to our community and society. Education and training are essential. Speaking up is absolutely essential. Helping individuals navigating and understanding that these systems do exist and these systems are really complex. Balance. Balance, I find it very important in this following sense, that there is a balance in technology, that we always drive technology all up to the limits, but there is a need to keep in mind human values, keep in mind ethic and well-beings, and not only just be driven by what solution we can make. Doris and I talked quite a bit about that, and in fact, one time we taught a course around if we can make it, should we? And other thing is institutions. Institutions have responsibilities, whether they are schools or workplaces or government. All of these will have particular responsibilities. I won't go in details right now. I'm just trying to save some time here. But each one of these levels, there are responsibilities. And these responsibilities need to be executed at a level of community levels, at a level of responsibility. Now, leadership, and this is, one could give a whole talk around this one here. That is, they must be forward-thinking and envisioning the future in a very different way than we have today. We have to figure out how we become more empathetic, active listeners, collaborators, and we need to be continuous learners. promoting resilience and accountability. There are many other things one could write about too. So Ben will talk a little bit more around the tools and techniques. I'll say very briefly about it. One of them is system thinking, and I said a few things about it today. We could do some modeling and simulation. We haven't done a lot, frankly, but we can do more. And network analysis. And network analysis is really critical for any of these solutions. Anytime you deal with social system, these three things in my mind are essential. Tools, obviously community building. Second is mental health initiatives, education and awareness, and policy changes. Each one of these, they will have different impact in different dimensions. And when you look at every one of them, you could map these on some activities and something that we have today, whether it's in schools or communities or other activities. So obviously, creativity is needed. Foresight is another subject we can talk about some other time, but this is a way of looking, not looking at the future as simply as a propagation of something happened in the past and repeating it. Because if anything, if you repeat what happened in the past, you'll end up with the same answers. We have to figure out a different way of seeing the future. Digital solutions are extremely important, and online platforms are really important. And let me now just close by two statements. One of them is addressing the intertwined issues of isolation, suicide, and other complex challenges requires collective approach. I want to underline the word collective approach. It is not going to be done by a group of people without the rest. This group of approach, this collectivity, has to engage both society at large and leaders, who, of course, they play vital roles. Leaders must be champions. This is not to be just saying, I'm leading this one, but you have to champion it. And champions means that they have to really look for the real changes when everyone from institutions and individuals are working together, acknowledge their shared responsibility and act upon it. And thank you very much for listening. Okay, then. Yes, thank you. I need some water. So let me introduce Benjamin. You aren't doing it? Okay, I can do it. I know Benjamin for a few years. He was students in a program called the Master in Design Engineering program, and it's a program that came from collaboration between School of Engineering and the Design School. I was one of the people who really worked hard on it to create it. And Benjamin was one of the early people there and worked quite a bit. And I remember when he was doing his thesis, I was in the audience and I said, this is a bright guy. I think he could do some interesting thing. I didn't really interact a lot with him when he was a student. But then when Claudia came to talk with me about it, I thought Ben to be the one who can really work with us and organize a lot of things. And sure enough, he did. And we are very proud of him. Thank you.
Thank you, Fawaz. So continuing with the conversation that we've started regarding the systems thinking, data, and how to decide on the interventions that the coalition is working on in both Maipú and Peñalolén, I wanted to share sort of some of the thinking which we started. So we started drawing a system map looking at all the different factors that influenced mental health in Peñalolén and Maipú. Of course, you can see a lot of feedback loops and interactions between different components. And then we also read some literature that led us into realizing that interventions have to be across different scales. The problem of mental health is not one that you can attack at an individual scale, but it's not one that you could attack at a policy level, but you need to have a multi-pronged approach where you're creating interventions at the individual scale, the interpersonal and family scale, organizational scale, community, and public policy. So the first, I want to share how this is a problem and how it's facing Chile. So the national mental health data in Chile has been steadily increasing since 2014. We can see this from this is data, public data from the Department of Statistics and Health from the Ministry of Health. And you can see there's been a steady increase up from 2014 to 2019, the decrease that we see here in 2020 and 2021 is due to the pandemic quarantine, that people didn't seek consultations for mental health. So this decline is not necessarily an improvement, but mostly a result of the pandemic. And now in last year on 2022, basically the increasing trend has continued. There's been an increase between 2019 and 2022 of 400,000 consultations for mental health. Another interesting trend that you can see here in yellow is women total consultations in Chile, and the proportion of women consultations to men. So women consultations to mental health programs in Chile are almost 2/3 to 1/3 being men consultations. So this initial broad understanding led us into focusing the first coalition in women. And you'll hear more about that in the coming speakers. Then if you zoom in, we start out with Chile mental health data. We zoom into the metropolitan region of Santiago. Similar trend to national level, which is interesting. You start seeing some fractal, patterns of replicating data, constant increase up until 2019, decrease during the pandemic, and then back up 2022. 2023 data is currently incomplete, so we don't have it. But also in the metropolitan region of Santiago's data, we also see 2/3 to 1/3 distribution of mental health consultations of women to men. Then if you zoom in even further, another level to get more granular data, we look at specifically the data of Maipú. Maipú is a little bit different. However, towards the end of 2022, again, a giant increase between 2019 and 2022. And again, the 2/3 to 1/3 ratio of consultations between women and men is sustained. And you'll hear more from the mayor of Maipú after my initial talk. And then even further, if you zoom in, then we looked at the total consultations of mental health in the different family health centers of Maipú. So the family health centers of Maipú are health centers that attend most people in the municipality, but they also take in a large portion of mental health consultations. And then we needed to figure out where the interventions would take place or how to decide which of these family health centers we would intervene in. And then, so this was a big guide, especially, and we decided to intervene in Carlos Godoy Family Mental Health Center as it generated one of the largest increases. And I'll speak a little bit more into this decision coming up. So a few trends in Maipú. In all the years recorded, women have received more mental health consultations than men. This might suggest that there's a greater need or that there's greater awareness to seek mental health in comparison to men. In 2022, there was a significant decrease, as I mentioned, probably posed by the challenges of COVID. And then the difference in care for men and women in 2022 is the widest in the period analyzed, with 25,301 additional cases for women in comparison to men in Maipú. This might indicate a growing gender gap in seeking mental health or differences in mental health care needs between men and women in Maipú. So this led the coalition of Maipú into focusing on women. Now, another municipality who you will be hearing from today will be the municipality of Peñalolén. We have the mayoress who will be speaking also shortly. And also we looked at the mental health data zooming into Peñalolén municipality to look at the scale of mental health care consultations in Peñalolén. Here we have also almost 100,000 consultations, of which 2/3 are women, 1/3 is men, and also a steady increase from 2014 to 2022. And also we looked at the health data for the different family health centers of the different CESFAMs in Peñalolén. I'll skip this. Now, to decide where to intervene in territory is one of the most difficult things. So we partnered and we looked at the territorial human well-being matrix that the Universidad Adolfo Ibáñez created, which takes into account 18 different territorial indicators and 4 dimensions: accessibility, environmental factors, socioeconomic, and safety, and aggregates them to identify populations or areas in the territory that are vulnerable. So in Maipú, if you can see, in the darker yellow are the most vulnerable areas in Maipú. In dark blue or would be the areas that are a little bit better off. So of course, Maipú each municipality has a different distribution of populations in need. If you can see here, this is where the intervention that we are focusing on, that you will hear later, took place. So it coordinates not only with the number of consultations, but also in this territorial human well-being matrix, identifying vulnerability in Maipú. And then in Peñalolén, it's a similar case. If you look at across all 4 dimensions of accessibility, environmental, socioeconomic, and safety, you identify that there's an area here and an area here, and hopefully we'll be intervening in both of these areas in Peñalolén to improve mental health. Now, although this territorial human well-being matrix currently exists, it doesn't take into account the consultations for mental health. So the next step that we would want, and we're currently developing, is a territorial mental health platform analysis, which we are doing in partnership with Data Observatory that is here with us today, the Universidad Adolfo Ibáñez, the 2 municipalities, and data from the Ministry of Health to aggregate not only socioeconomic factors, but also consultations to cross these 2 data points to then develop and have public data that different people can intervene in the territory. That's it for now. And now I will welcome both mayors, the panel of Tomás Bodanovic. He's the mayor of Maipú, and he will share a little bit more of the municipality of Maipú. And following Tomás, the mayoress of Peñalolén will join him.
I took my water. Hi, everybody. First of all, I want to thank the university for work with us and invite us to be here. Thanks, Claudia, to invite us to be part of the High Impact Coalition. And of course, thanks everybody to be here and listen us in this afternoon. Secondly, I'm gonna introduce myself. My name is Tomás Bodanovic. I'm the mayor of Maipú, the most beautiful and important city in Santiago of Chile. I'm gonna focus my presentation not only in the importance of work about mental health, but on importance of collaboration between different actors. I want to answer 2 main questions in only 10 minutes because that's the time that you give us. The first one is, why is public-private collaboration is important, and why is it even more important in these times and in a country like Chile? And I'm gonna context some situations that happens in Chile last years. And the second one, why we are using public-private collaboration to improve mental health in Maipú. A little bit of Chilean context. I don't know how many people here is from Chile. Can you raise your hand? Maybe we can speak in Chilean. Everybody knows that Chile has high levels of inequality, similar than the rest of South America, but in 2018, Chile has the 2nd highest level of income inequality in the OECD, as measured by the Gini index. We have not only a very inequality problem, but a small group of people in Chile concentrate a lot of economic and political power. So there is a very big problem of inequality, and not only inequality, the second big problem that we have is about trust. Trust between people, trust about politics, about businessmen, about everybody. I think that in the last years, Chile decreased his level of trust in any institution. So in 2019, there was a very big social outburst, a massive protest in streets. The majority of population, led by the younger groups, carried out massive protests with more than 1 million people in streets against inequality, abuses of lack of social right. At the end of that massive protest, the country generated a lot of critical reflection, but there were no real solutions, and society ended up more divided than before the protest. 2020, everybody knows that we faced a COVID crisis, the pandemic, confinement, fear, a very big economic and mental health crisis. But at the same time, there was also an increased awareness of the importance of collaboration in tackle big challenge. Collaboration between institutions, collaboration between people in our neighborhoods, and at the same time that people was very fear and poor and with a lot of illness about mental health. At the same time, they are very aware about the necessity of collaboration. Next year, 2021 and 2022, a new generation, I'm part of that generation, of young leftist politicians won large part of the local elections in 2021. Then the same political coalition, Frente Amplio, won the national government election in 2022. Now we have to pass from protesting to governing. That is a little bit more difficult. In politics, it's very easy to say that something is wrong, but it's very difficult to fix it. So now we are in this challenge. That political coalition had been highly critical of the government of the last 30 years, of the role of the private sector, and had led process against inequality and against the concentration of economic and political power. But the same group, they now had the responsibility to governing. What is the big challenge for us? To move from criticism to action, to rebuild trust between politicians, businessmen, and citizens. So how we can do that? Building bridges, working together. I think that we have the big challenge of leading and managing a socially fragmented country in an economic and trust crisis and with high level of mental illness. To face this situation and to rebuild our country, it has been necessary to tear down certain walls between groups, certain mistrusts, and sit all the actors to the same table for reaching agreements and working together on common purpose, independent of our ideologies. We all belong to the same country. For that reason, we all want to build a better country, and we're trying to do it in Maipú. That is our big network that is working with government institutions, international organizations, private sector, higher education, and civil society. Of course, we have different point of view for different topics. We have different life experience, but we are agreed that we have to work for our country and for our city. What was the mental health situation in Maipú 2 years ago? Maipú was the commune or city with the largest gap in mental health care in all of Chile. We have only one mental health center, or COSAM, for a population of 600,000 inhabitants. And months before that I take the mayor office, this center suffered a fire that affected the 60% of its infrastructures. There is a news from the local media, La Voz de Maipú. So we have to go down to work. In this context, from our municipality, we sat down with the university, social society, neighborhood leaders, and private companies located in Maipú to tell them, beyond our difference, we have to work together to build a better city. And one such effort, and perhaps the most significant for us, is the High Impact Coalition, the group that's been here, a very beautiful team with Harvard, Claudia, and all her friends. There is a lot of people, with one common objective: to improve the mental health of the residents of Maipú. And it was a really great experience for us to have the possibility not only to work, but to know different academics, businessmen, neighborhoods leaders, and different kind of people that maybe it's very weird to know each other because Chile is a very divided country, but see them working together, it's really, it's a good news, I think, not only for Maipú, but for Chile. There are some pictures of our work, a lot of meetings, workshops, Doris Summers in Maipú, doing pre-context. That was a very good news for everybody. Now, we appear in some medias about this alliance and what is the situation right now in Maipú. The COSAM 1 It's 100% operated and serving the public. 1 month ago, we inaugurated a community mental health center focused on addiction care. We are now in process of building our second COSAM, and which will be inaugurated in August of next year. And of course, we are developing different community care strategies, including the program promoted by the High Impact Coalition. Maybe then Doris and Dr. Valdivia can tell you about that experience. I have only 10 minutes, so I prefer to focus on importance of collaboration between institutions, but a really great experience for us. So just for closing, different actors add different elements. We expand knowledge, resources, attribution, and power of impact. Everyone plays a role, and I think that together we have more power than separately. This coalition, in my opinion, gives a very powerful message and a lesson to the country that beyond our difference, we can sit all at the same table and work collaboratively to solve common and urgent challenge. If this logic were multiplied, Chile would be a different country. So if I say only one message, it's important to collaborate between institutions. We live in a really divided country. Nobody trusts in nobody. Politicians over there, businessmen over there, the society over there. So we need to sit down all in the same table, work together, because I'm really convinced that when you work with someone, you know someone, and you realize that you have more of common points that things that separate us. So thank you, Claudia, again, and we have to continue working for Maipú and from all Chile. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Bogdanovic, Fawaz, Ben, for your very kind words. I am one member. The beauty of this coalition that belongs to everyone and doesn't belong to anyone. It's a coalition for the country. I am very proud to introduce an extraordinary woman, Mayoress Carolina Leitao. She has been at Peñalolén Municipality for 3 periods, doing an amazing work, especially with children, very focused on mental health as well. And she's the first woman elected as a president of the whole Association of Municipalities in Chile. We're talking about 340 municipalities, and she's a great leader in this position as well.
Thank you, Claudia. First of all, I would like to thank the invitation to expose this amazing experience and to thank all the people who have helped and have been interested in the formation of this coalition and who are present here today. Claudia, Eduardo, Claudia Bobadilla, Eduardo Chadwick, Professor Fawaz Jabal, Benjamin Villa, Melinda Jovenko and Catherine Burbacher, working with great passion and conviction for the children of Peñalolén in this coalition and all delegation from Chile. Some facts of Peñalolén. 270,707 inhabitants, where 50.7 are women and 49.3 are men. It's a big community in Chile. It has 5 macro sectors, and the population, that a lot of information, but I have short time. And important child juvenile population, 26.2. The communal
policy of childhood and adolescence of the municipality is based on the provision of the Convention on the Rights of the Child and tries to become a local protection system of rights, adapting to the particularities and needs of the inhabitants of this commune since 2009 and has been updated over the years. Our policy consists of a strategic communal plan of activities and actions that seeks to guarantee the exercises of the rights of children and adolescents of the commune, based on 3 axes: social prevention, quality of life, and participation. The pandemic has aggravated a problem that has always existed: mental health, and within depression, anxiety, among many other disorders. The mental health of children have several causes, and that is why we must seek comprehensive and interdisciplinary solutions. It's important that we reinforce parenting skill, since mental health is closely linked to the state of their mothers, fathers, and caregivers. The intervention we can make from 0 to 4 years of age has a great impact of the trajectory of the life cycle. These are the keys age to prevent risk factors. Oh, sorry. Chile does not have a mental health policy for children and adolescents that provides a frame of reference to empower and improve the mental health of this population group. According to data from studies by the Office of the Children's Defense, in Chile there are also imbalance between the resources assigned to this area and the highest burden of disease in mental health, a reality that not only affects Chile and that occurs with greater force in low and middle income countries. Between 2014 and 2022, there was a general increase in mental health care from both men and women. In the case of men, there was increase of 55.2, while women experienced an increase of 75%. Relevant data we have obtained from the Youth and Wellbeing Survey in Peñalolén, an study. Student is sophomore year from school in the commune. Of the student present indicators related to psychological distress. Satisfaction and happiness indicators were reduced by 20% compared to 2020. Regarding the frequency on which the surveyed students have thought of committing suicide, the option of sometimes and frequently doubled in relation to the previous measurement. This data and many others show us the importance of mental health and mainly getting there in time, how we are raising alerts and doing a comprehensive work to influence the development of the children's life cycle in a positive way and their families. As I was saying, the coalition, Claudia says to members of the coalition, it's a presentation with all members, Chadwick Wine Wars, Puente Social, Networks of Social Leaders of Peñalolén, CNN Chile, Adolfo Ibáñez University, Procultura, Dr. Mario Valdivia, David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies, and Municipality of Peñalolén. The role of municipalities is very relevant in building bridges of conversation and collaborative work between the different parties and being the ones to promote these spaces to contribute contribute to society. We are ones who know the territories, the neighbors, and together with the different agents, we can promote resources and knowledge to deliver a better quality of life and well-being to the population. The results we obtain when we all have the same object are the more powerful. The objective of this coalition is to jointly seek solutions to the problem of vulnerable children in the commune, to then conduct the proposed interventions after the territorial diagnosis, and finally to able to measure their results and efficacy with an initial duration of 1 year. An important focus is given to early childhood, their families, and prevention, since it is known that this first stage of children's development is fundamental for their future development and of maximum benefit with respect to the resources invested. First steps of the coalition began in January 2023 with the Harvard team's week-long visit to Peñalolén to learn about the reality of our commune, and they generate the first meeting from the coalition. Claudia, Eduardo, Professor Fawas, Jabal, Benjamin, Melinda, and Catherine. The visit consisted of a first meeting between the Harvard team and the municipality to tell them about the commune and specifically about the strategic and relevant topic for municipal management, which is children and the relevance of prevention for the proper development. Then they went to field to learn about the experience of program that they ran with a focus on priority prevention and children, adolescents, buildings, time in community, a municipal program that seeks to strengthen the community with a focus on the well-being of children. Finally, they visited a kindergarten of the Cristo Joven Foundation, which also joined the coalition where talked with the professionals and the work team. To end the first day of work, we had the first meeting of the coalition for its official confirmation. For the community diagnosis, 2 discussions were held with parents and caregivers. 1 discussion with professionals working with children, 1 activity with early childhood children for the Cristo Joven Foundation. To summarize their long conversation with the professionals of the network. Aquí. I'm going fast. Yes. After the diagnosis made and present above, the coalition team presented the following intervention proposal, where the Lower Media macro sector was selected for the intervention. Work with the community throughout the methodology of pretext for the improvement of mental health and address to increase of violence. It has the objective of reducing fear, anguish, depressive condition, and generate collective hope. 2, community intervention for parents and caregivers in parenting skill. With therapy sessions model of Ricardo Araya and Graciela Rojas, a project that seeks to reduce waiting lists in primary health centers. And 3, mental health training for first-line professional in primary health center of Peñalolén, with the objective of developing clinical skill to diagnose and treat mental health disorder prevalent in primary care. This training will be conducted by the Dean of Medicine of Concepcion University and Mental Health Advisor of the Ministry of Health, Mario Valdivia. The methodology will include 5 sessions of 3 hours each every day, afternoon at a specific time to be agreed with the municipality Peñalolén and the primary health staff. And 4, a territorial analysis platform for mental health decisions. And 5, training frequent adolescent mental health problem given by Vania Martinez to professional from Lormida schools. To begin implementing one of the lines of action of the territorial workshop of mental health called frequent mental health problem in adolescents, what's held to professionals from school and related program for children and adolescents in the Lormida La Faena sector. This workshop was conducted in three sessions and aimed to strengthen technical skill from the promotion and adolescent well-being on the prevention early detection, approach and referral of the most common mental health problems in adolescents in the school system. The topics addressed were depression, anxiety, self-injury, and suicide risk in adolescents, warning signs, and prevent tools. This workshop was given by Dr. Vania Martinez, an adolescent psychiatrist, professor of the Center for Reproductive Medicine and Adolescent Integral Development, Faculty of Medicine of University of Chile, and director of IMAI Millennium Nucleus. And finally, the next steps of intervention carried out by the coalition are the following. Community intervention for parents, mothers, and caregivers in parenting skill, therapy sessions modeled by Ricardo Araya and Graciela Rojas, 2, mental health training for first-line professional in primary health center of Peñalolén y Lormida. We hope that both interventions will be carried out in the remainder of 2023 and show you and all those who are interested the results obtained in this process, seeking that this experience can be a reference for the creation of a national mental health policy with a focus on children, and that other municipalities in Chile and the world can implement to address this problem that not country or community is unaware. Thank you very much for all, and sorry for my English. Sorry, but it's my first time that I speak in English and in the life.
You did wonderfully. We are a little bit. You did it wonderfully. You can imagine how was my first time speaking English. None. So I would like to invite mayors, Mayor Fawaz and Benjamin to the panel. We are a little bit behind time, but we will have at least 5 minutes for getting your questions and interacting with you all, if you agree. If you already have questions, please raise your hands. Sentado porque tiene micrófono. Yeah. Adriana, Elliot, and your name, I don't know your name. Alberto.
And the impact I think it's going to have. I am wondering, how do you plan to measure the impact and such huge investment that you must be doing in money, in time, and building all these conditions?
Ben, would you like to explain, because
Yeah.
you're in charge of this?
Each intervention will have a different measurement metric. So for example, Vanya, it's based on academic literature, and she's already measuring using questionnaires of entry and exit of each, for example, mental health professional who's doing the training. Mario Valdivia also had an entry and exit survey to measure the impact of the mental health frontline workers that were participating in the training at the CISFAM. Doris also in pretext also implemented an entry and an exit survey to measure what was the impact of the pretext workshops of the people who participated. So each sort of intervention has its own measurement metrics. And we're still analyzing some of the data. Mario will present when he's presenting. I think he's going to show the increase. And Vanya also, she couldn't be here with us today. She already has some of the metrics as well to measure the success, and then to understand if we should replicate and how to replicate the intervention.
Can I just say just one thing to this point? I think this is a very important question. No problem with that at all. However, when we think of really a complex problem, these problems don't happen by cause and effect. So we get to be very careful to say, it's not like you have a dying tree, you add little water, things will flourish. You have to look at things on longer time and look at many factors and be very cognizant with potential of surprises. There are things that come negatively that you didn't expect, and positive you don't expect. It's an ongoing effort. It's not going to be, we leave and that's finished. It is a long-term effort that we need to sustain it. Maybe not myself, but other people need to sustain it. And the people in the room here need to be really collaborating to sustain it. It's not going to be a dose of energy and disappears. Everything will be perfect. It will never happen this way. I don't know of any complex problem that's solved that way.
Elliot?
Thank you so much, everyone. And like Adriana, congratulations to this whole group. It's so inspiring. Also a question about metrics for all of you, because I heard two presented here today or mentioned the one of the mental well-being metrics from the University of Ibanez, and then a different one that was just in the last presentation by Carolina about the satisfaction and happiness. And of course, what's interesting about that is I wonder where I'm curious about the data and where it's coming from, because at least here in the US, I think the most data is coming for well-being is coming out of University of Rochester from the 70s, from self-determination theory. And I think I see Fawaz nodding. But I'm just curious if it's something different happening and whether you could just briefly speak to that and direct us, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ben again.
Yeah, so most of the mental health data is coming from the Ministry of Health, where the consultations data is coming from. Now, the Adolfo Ibáñez is aggregating different data from different ministries, for example, acts of violence, socioeconomic data, and then using that, they're generating an indicator that aggregates all the recent data from the different ministries. Now, our idea, and this is work in progress, is joining those two sets of data, because the well-being index or the matrix of territorial well-being doesn't integrate mental health data or mental health consultation data before, because of concerns of privacy of patient. But the Ministry of Health recently developed a public platform that shows mental health consultations without, it's all anonymized data, so then we could get that data and join it with the other socioeconomic factors, for example, to indicate if there's causality or if there's certain correlations between cause and effect and that are leading to higher rates of mental health consultations.
And then the second one, the children. You can follow what you follow later, but the one about the children, happiness and satisfaction reducing by 20% that Carolina mentioned.
I don't know that statistic.
Well, maybe follow up.
Oh yeah, we can de una estadística de que tú tuviste la presentación del bienestar de los niños del 20%.
Sí.
And you wanted to,
¿Qué dije? Sí.
okay, we can.
Okay. What exactly would
Pero
you
¿cuál es la
like to
pregunta?
ask a question about the children's satisfaction?
Ah,
Okay, okay.
Ah, lo que pasa es que,
Thank you.
sí, que había un estudio.
We will have a coffee and then you can chat.
No, no, sí.
Alberto?
Much. First, I want to say thank you to both Mayor. You represent very well the idea of a Chile who work together from private and public sector and with the academia. My question is for both mayors. We know not always it's easy to implement community intervention. We don't always see this is always perfect and you can do it really fast. What barriers do you find to implement this in both comunas if we try to replicate, for example, in other planes that we don't have the same private sector or the academia or a really attached community-based population? Sí.
Déjame pensar.
Can I do it in Spanish or not? Yeah?
Sí.
There's no problem to answer in Spanish? I prefer, for me it's better. I feel more comfortable. It's okay? Then you can translate each other. A ver, varias barreras. Yo creo que este es un ejercicio muy improbable en general. O sea, no ocurre mucho en Chile que la academia, el sector privado y el sector público, menos viniendo desde la izquierda, se sienten en conjunto a abordar temáticas comunes. Y por algo es improbable, porque parece muy obvio que es lo que hay que hacer, pero nadie lo está haciendo, o muy pocos lo están haciendo, y eso ocurre por varios factores, creo yo. El primero es la desconfianza entre actores. Yo creo que al menos en Chile y sobre todo después de la época del estallido y la pandemia, la desconfianza principalmente, y me hago cargo, desde un sector político muy incipiente, con poca experiencia de gobernar, muy crítico de todo lo que lo antecedió, era evidente, y eso obviamente no generaba una buena recepción de la contraparte. Ni el resto de los representantes políticos, ni el mundo de la empresa, creo que tenían muchas ganas de sentarse a la mesa con nosotros tampoco. No habíamos sido muy simpáticos, por así decirlo. Entonces, primero yo creo que existían desconfianzas cruzadas entre el mundo de la empresa, entre la política, para qué decir la sociedad civil. Tenemos una sociedad que cada vez desconfía más de todo aquello que ostente poder o institucionalidad, y ahí creo que habían puentes cortados que no permitían que nos sentásemos a la mesa para abordar temáticas comunes. Yo creo que esa era una gran dificultad que al menos en el caso de Maipú yo creo que se resolvió con harta facilidad, y ahí yo creo que el rol de Claudia de verdad fue fundamental para poder sentarnos a la mesa, acercar posiciones. Al menos yo también soy una persona bien desprendida de ciertas barreras ideológicas que pueden existir. Yo soy muy convencido que el conflicto puede generar interés mediático, pero lo que le mejora la vida a la gente es la colaboración, y uno no construye países criticando, destruyendo instituciones, uno construye países colaborando con las distintas instituciones y fortaleciéndolas. Y yo creo que ese fue como un mandato inicial de nuestra gestión en Maipú. Luego la segunda barrera, para ser muy honesto, para nosotros era el tiempo. Nosotros cuando asumimos en la municipalidad, quienes son chilenos podrán conocer un poco más el contexto, pero la municipalidad de Maipú estaba destruida en todo ámbito. No solo se la habían robado completo y teníamos un déficit de 31.000 millones de pesos, cerca de 30 millones de dólares más o menos al cambio actual, sino que administrativamente estaba destruida, no existían procesos, no existía información, y obviamente nuestro esfuerzo inicial estaba en reconstruir una institución y atender las urgencias comunales. Todo aquello que te desviara un poco el foco de eso era visto como una carga muy importante, no para mí como alcalde, que uno tiene voluntad de hacerlo todo, sino que para los equipos que están detrás, que tenían que destinar horas de trabajo, reuniones, para poder sacar estos proyectos adelante. Y luego, obviamente, la desconfianza que van a existir por parte de la comunidad o las instituciones, pero creo que esas se resolvieron más fácil. Es tanta la necesidad, que lo hablábamos ayer con Claudia en términos de salud mental, que la resistencia que uno podría esperar encontrar en los centros de salud o en los profesionales de la salud, la verdad es que la sorteamos bastante fácil una vez que se entendió que esto no era un reemplazo a sus funciones, sino que un complemento que nos podría ayudar a facilitar la pega en salud mental. Y yo creo que esas tres fueron como las principales barreras, las tres se sortearon, y yo siempre digo, este es un ejercicio que, bueno, en salud mental lo estamos haciendo con Harvard y la coalición, pero en general lo estamos haciendo a nivel comunal en distintos objetivos que nos hemos propuesto. Yo soy un convencido que el Estado por sí solo, si bien tiene que jugar un rol y garantizar ciertos derechos, no es capaz de resolver todos los problemas que existen en la sociedad, porque los problemas son innumerables y el Estado es sumamente lento, ineficiente, engorroso y burocrático, y si no somos capaces de tomar el conocimiento que tiene la academia, tomar la capacidad de gestión que tiene el sector privado, tomar los fondos que puedan venir de organismos internacionales y sumarlo todo en la juguera, vamos a ser menos eficientes para generar transformaciones que son urgentes en nuestros barrios. Entonces, desde ahí yo creo que la gran lección para mí, por eso focalicé la presentación ahí, es la importancia de la colaboración, cualquiera sea el objetivo que esta persiga.
¿Va a traducir un poco?
Sorry for English speakers.
En resumen, ¿sí?
No,
¿Lo va a hacer, no?
al final ahí-
Ya, ok. En el caso de Peñalolén es distinto. Yo soy alcaldesa por 3 periodos. Por lo tanto, tengo un equipo robusto que ya está instalado y quizás entonces la barrera era como otra innovación. De nuevo vamos a entrar en algo nuevo, pero quiero transformarlo al revés a tu pregunta respecto de las barreras y transformarlo como en las cosas que justamente son necesarias para sacar adelante este tipo de proyectos, porque más que barreras han sido, lo primero es el liderazgo. Cuando un líder se involucra en algo, el equipo entiende de que es un proyecto importante y de que hay que darle prioridad y de que debe dedicársele tiempo y también recursos, lo que sea necesario para sacarlo adelante. Pero además hay otra cosa, el esfuerzo público-privado, en el caso de Peñalolén, es una experiencia de muchos años. De hecho, bueno, con la Universidad Adolfo Ibáñez trabajamos en múltiples proyectos, está en nuestra comuna, la universidad, por lo tanto para nosotros es una permanente de acción, de generar acciones conjuntas. Y eso también puede ser una barrera en la medida en que uno no logra establecer una relación de mayor eficiencia, de obtener datos, o sea, como ponerle métrica a las cosas, no solo voluntad, sino que también la voluntad de medirse. Yo creo que es muy importante en esto y podría ser una barrera el cuando uno teme a medirse cuando dice, bueno, ¿esto va a resultar o no va a resultar? ¿Cuál va a ser nuestra capacidad de medir el resultado? Y por eso es tan importante en este caso aliarnos con Harvard y con el profesor y con todos quienes trabajan hoy día, porque eso nos permite poner, la academia le pone lo indispensable para que una política se vaya midiendo en el camino y por lo tanto nosotros después podamos tomar decisiones. Y la última, creo que también entre oportunidad y que también puede ser una barrera, es que suelen haber muchas ideas en el ámbito local que terminan ahí, en solo una idea. Y nosotros, al menos yo desde Peñalolén, y yo creo que Tomás también tiene el mismo ímpetu y las mismas ganas recién asumido como alcalde, y es que ojalá las cosas que hagamos no solo terminen en una buena idea, sino que terminen transformándose en una política pública. Ese siempre ha sido nuestro objetivo, es explorar, ensayar para después ir y contar. Yo hace una semana atrás celebramos 10 años de Quintún, que es un centro que atiende personas con Alzheimer. Es el primer centro de atención público en el país que atiende personas con demencia. Si no nos atrevíamos nosotros, y bueno, ahí logramos alianzas también con otros, pero es atreverse. Y hoy día ese centro que creamos hace 10 años, que creé yo hace 10 años atrás, hoy día fue el puntapié inicial para el Plan Nacional de Demencias de nuestro país. Entonces, ese es el objetivo. No, pueden ser más grandes, más pequeños, pero el objetivo es transformar estas ideas y estos proyectos, o si fracasan, también decir, ¿sabe que por este lado no va? Bueno, tenemos que inventar otra cosa que ayude a intervenir en un problema tan importante como hoy día lo es el tema de salud mental.
Just for the English speakers, I will summarize. The mayor says she puts the emphasis not in the barriers or the problems, she puts the answer on the other side, which means you need leadership, which is not a barrier, it's what we need. Time, and maybe barrier was the response from her teams out, another innovation. So from where we will get time for working in this new innovation. The challenge of measuring and having a clear data for knowing what is working well or not, and also being very realistic on the impact that the intervention will have, because the aim of Peñalolén is to transform every local intervention in national public policies. This is the goal for this municipality, which is very ambitious. The difference that she pointed out This is her third period as a mayoress with a very robust team that I know, and they're extremely good team. So she has this capacity, this is infrastructure on data, teams, so it wasn't too hard to open the doors for a new project. In the case of Maipú, Mayor Bodanovic is in the second year, first term, and he received a totally broken municipality with a big debt, almost $30 million of debt, a very fragile team, one COSAM, so a lot of difficulties, and also the lack of trust on his new generation. Coming from a left party, the connections between his party and the business sector and other actors of the Chilean society wasn't strong enough. So the challenge was how to sit everyone on the table and start building these ties and trust within each other. Maybe that's
Just 2 points are the more
the
important.
most important.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is Keta and Melinda. It's very nice to have friends because I know the names.
He's waiting. He's first.
Sorry, I don't know your name. You will be my next friend.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Tomas. I'm also from Chile. And so, well, thank you all, first of all, for the time of the study and to present the study. And so my question is, I'm always interested in the things you can improve in order to take this project for future projects. So my question for you is, based on your experience in your study in Chile, what would you improve for future studies regarding mental health? And for projects as well.
Benjamin or first? For you.
Yeah, sure. I'll have a stab at it. I mean, every situation has a particular context, and we have to be very careful not to take one thing and put it on the other and make it just a solution for everything. But there are some elements that are really universal. Most, and I'd say most, I could say all, human challenges are complex. And we don't treat them this way. We treat them as a cause and effect. And that's need to change. That's a fundamental change. That's one. Second is, when we say coalition, it's not coalition of all business people or all doctors, or it has to really look at the total society in every aspect of it. It needs leadership, no question about it. It needs innovation. Every area will have a different innovation. It's not going to be the same innovation we take in. Even within Maipú and Penalén is really different. So we have to keep in mind always the context. Now, there are some studies that show that there are some work that can generate positive things and can be implemented somewhere else. That's for sure. And I'm tracking a lot of it personally. However, I also need to be careful not to make it like the essence of things, having collaborations, having coalitions, having system analysis, or these are, as I said, these are universal, in my opinion. I have no proof to that. Okay, it's an opinion so far. And I remember Thomas, first time I talked with him, he challenged me a lot about that. And I agree, we don't have a proof of that. We really don't. But we know the opposite is true too, which is when we have addressing things in certain dimension and leaving others, they break. They never worked. And we see it. We see challenges on many levels on society and on the world continue to come back. And we have to find a way to break these cyclical things that are really non-productive.
Thank you very much, Fawaz. We have a coffee waiting, but just Keta and Melinda, you can be very precise.
She's waiting also.
Sorry? Luis? Oh, sorry, Luis. I'm not your friend yet. No. I didn't explain. I have myopia.
It's because she's waiting.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
young people.
Right. Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Vandy. I'm a computational neuroscience student here from the south of Chile. I'm from Temuco, so I'm from a region. So my question...
There are people from Ufro.
Yeah. Oh, woo. Yeah.
There are people there.
So my question is, more related to regional expansion. I was wondering if there is currently a future plan of expansion, and if there were to be, I was wondering what you can learn from the pilot project so far and what you would apply, and what challenges do you foresee for these efforts in regions?
Maybe I can answer the question.
We can expand in my pool.
No, this project has designed for 1 year, piloting each coalition. We start in Maipú in August last year, in Peñalolén this year, and we're getting the results for the interventions. And what we are exploring now for scaling up, because that was the ambition for the first moment, having the possibility to scale up nationally what is working within the pilot. At the national level, we will have a good presentation from Benjamin Miller, because what we are looking is from online platforms that can deliver not just the traditional therapies, is something different. It's how to train each other of us for looking after and helping people and helping us as well when we are facing emotional distress or some kind of mental health illness. So this is the ambition. We will work, and the mayor has a strong voice on how to make these local interventions to get them as national public policies. See, is our aim, and we are hopefully getting there. Thank you. Very brief, yeah? Please. We can skip the coffee because the conversation is great. But
Hi, I'm Eva, and I also got completely enchanted by Fawaz Habal, his lectures that we have, and just love working with him. So we are sort of in the same boat. I'm very impressed what you have done, and it's fantastic to see a project after a year, how much it developed and what have happened, and it's really an inspiration, I think, for us all here. I was just wondering if you had any example before you started about how you wanted to do it and how to move on.
Is a question for me?
For you, yes, because you took the initiative, right? So,
the answer is related to what the mayor showed, the social unrest in 2018. My trainees in law, I work mainly as a board member at large companies. And when the social unrest happened in my country, I was totally distressed myself. I feel totally useless, ignorant about a large part of the reality of my country. So I took my savings, they weren't too much, and I invited 6 people to work together and to visit Maipú, Peñalolén, and 8 other boroughs that represent the 70% of the reality, the economical, social, and cultural reality of my country. We slept there, we talked to the people, we just listened. We listened 1,000 people. And when we came back to our places, we continued the relationship with the social leaders and the mayors, and we raised 70 major issues that we have to address as a country. And all of them, they have a common exit, which is mental health. So this previous work, triggered by the social unrest, very based on the grassroots experience, was the initial point. And coming here to Harvard was tremendously important to the LI program, because it was another piece of this puzzle to have the knowledge, the high-level knowledge, and also to be connected with Eduardo and the business sector, which we will have a panel now from them, gives the support and the strength for addressing this very challenging problem. Coffee or another question?
We can talk in the coffee.
Coffee.
No, it's okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will start the two last panels of this presentation and conference. I kindly ask you to
shut up.
take your seats. And also, in the meantime, I want to welcome Professor Brian Tressler, the ALI Executive Director and the responsible for this project, because it's thanks to ALI that we were able to imagine and to do this coalition. Thank you very much, Professor. Now we will have two panels. I ask everyone to be very precise for being on time. This panel is integrated by 4 representatives from the business sector. Susana Torres, the president of the Swiss-Chilean Chamber of Commerce. Eduardo Chadwick, president of Viñedos Chadwick, ALI fellow and leader of the Maipú Coalition, the Peñalolén Coalition. And Roberto D'Andraca, director of CAP Group, a mining group in Chile, and also one of the main sponsors of the TV program on mental health at CNN, and Jorge Querey, the president of CNN Chile and responsible for the divulgation on the media and the TV of mental health issues. We will start with Susana, and then every man will have the time. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm really happy and grateful to be here, but I have to be short. So I already start. I'm going to talk about the contribution of the private sector on these amazing coalitions you have heard about. So I will tell you, first of all, about the Chilean-Swiss Chamber of Commerce and how we approach to the coalition, or the coalition approach to us. It's something in between. Yeah, during last year, the chamber decided to do more work close to the territories where the companies are located. So it was the first idea to do something, no, with the municipalities and work closely. And at that time, it was Claudia who came with this idea from Harvard, and it matched perfectly with what we were thinking to do. So in this way, we got 4 companies that are Swiss companies that agreed on the purpose of the coalition, so they were willing to be part of the coalition. They were Archroma, Clariant, they were Nestle and SGS. So they formed part of the coalition, active part, and they agree on the purpose to develop a mental health prevention program. You may wonder why Swiss companies? And there are reasons. Switzerland has objectives to contribute to the human development, yeah? And also support the developing countries to develop the SDGs. And one of the SDGs of the United Nations agenda is state good health and well-being. So it matches also with the purpose of the chamber, and the companies agree on that. I will now tell a little bit about each company. Archroma is a provider of specialty chemicals. And the CEO of this company, she was very much involved since the beginning of the coalition. She is Lysiane Barceló, participating on almost every meeting. And she says, after this was already developed, I think it is important to highlight the positive effect of this project for the families of our workers, because the workers of the companies are living in Maipú, so who are mostly from the commune, as well as we are collaborating for future generations. So a strong statement from the CEO of the company contributes to the participation of Archroma. Then we have Clariant. It's like a sister company to Archroma. They are even located in the same area. Also chemical company. His CEO is Marcelo Gonzalez, is in the middle of the picture. He was the promoter of the idea I mentioned before, to work closely to the territories where the companies were. So he is really a big supporter of the coalition. And I will name some sentences because he has a lot to say. He's very much enthusiastic, and he wants to continue. It's a great news. He wants to continue supporting this idea and this work in the community. He says, in times like this, it's crucial for Clarion to be more present within the community and support as private enterprise with our stakeholders. And in the last sentence, he says, we as part of this distinguished coalition are expecting to translate into long-term success. And we commit to continue support on it. And thanks for to be part of this amazing initiative. Then we have Nestle. I think Nestle was close to the municipality since long. So when we talk about this initiative, they say immediately, yes, we are going to be part of that. And it was Franziska Angerstein, the sustainability lead, who says, for us, this initiative is a true reflection on how Nestlé seeks to generate shared value in society, allowing us to relate to the community in which we are inserted and generate impact both on the neighbors of the territory where we have our factory operating, as well as on our own collaborators who live and work daily in the commune of Maipú. And last but not least, SGS is a testing, inspection, and certification company. Augusto Nogueira is the organizational development manager. He is on the picture here when we launched the interventions in the CESFAM in Maipú. So he said, this initiative in which we are participating has particular relevance since it is intended to work to reduce the number of people who need care in mental health centers. We are very happy to be able to contribute positively to the well-being of the inhabitants of this commune where some of our facilities operate. So this was, I hope I comply with the time. And
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. It's a pleasure to share what we're trying to do in Chile with our coalition. I came to Harvard at the ALI program, and the first challenge that you were given is to choose a course. And of course, you have many, many courses in Chile that need help, support. And it took me a while to really try to think what was the most meaningful course for me and for our country. And I've felt that children were the most important cause to look after. Why? Because it's a real tragedy. In Chile, children are really not looked after by the politicians or by the government because they are the only ones that don't have a voice. And the vulnerable children in Chile are really suffering, and that's the future of our country. So children is really a cause that moves me, and I think it's very, very important for the future of our country, particularly the vulnerable children that are really not living in the right conditions. Secondly, a coalition. Why a coalition? Professor Fawaz told deeply, I think gave us a full lecture about the complex problems in Chile. And the children are really a complex reality. You have issues of poverty, education, health, drugs, abuse, criminality, many, many factors that are really affecting the society. So it's not something you can really solve. It's something you can work for the future, but needs a coalition mindset. You need a group of people that have the same vision, the same cause, and that's how we've been inviting all the members of this coalition that Claudia has mentioned, including one of our ALI members, Melinda, that's a specialist in looking after children. We have a psychiatrist from Universidad Concepción Mario Valdivia, and we have a full coalition that looks after all the different aspects of how to help support our children in Chile. Why Peñalolén? Majoress Carolina gave us the detail of what she's doing in Chile, in Peñalolén, but I would say that perhaps Peñalolén is a small Chile because it has a bit of everything. It has regions or localities that are very poor, localities that are mid-sector, and localities that are richer. So it's a part of the city that is very relevant and very much what is all Chile about. And for me, the choice of Peñalolén was perhaps two things. A coalition, because, and I think I was inspired by Claudia. Claudia had formed the coalition in Maipú, and I knew that I wanted to do something with children. The second step was what to do. The coalition, we followed the example of what was being done by Claudia in Maipú. And then secondly, Claudia introduced me to Majoress Carolina. And from day one, we looked at each other, and I felt there was a fertile soil, a fertile community, because you need leadership. And perhaps many regions in Chile can do it, but you need a team. And Majoress Carolina has an amazing team working in the field. So I could see that whatever effort we would put into and funds and time, it would really be very fertile soil, and it's happening. I really want to thank you, Majoress, because it's been a fantastic time working together. Of course, we're really at the middle stages, but it's a fertile soil, a group of people that have all this dream to do good things, and it's happening. And finally, why me? I'm a vine grower, so I'm really working in the vineyard. That's been my life. For 40 years, I've been trying to put Chile in the map in wines. So I could speak to you days and about wine. Why? And I normally start my speeches saying Chile is a viticultural paradise because we produce great wine. Today, of course, we're not going to talk about our wine. But wine is, when you try to bring image to a country, you try to improve the life of the vigneron, of the people that work in the field. And that image will bring value to the community. And I think that's very important. So I hope you drink good Chilean wine. But today, we're going to talk about a bigger cause. And I think what ALI has told us has really given us the awareness to dream big. And I'm also a father of 6 children. And you always dream to give the best to your children. And the why I decided to really pursue this cause is to try to bring justice to our children in Chile, to give the children in Chile the best opportunities to really thrive and to evolve. And that's a cause. That's why Viñedos Familia Chávez, our family is working in this cause, and we hope to contribute to the well-being of our children. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you to Harvard for hosting this event, and to Claudia and the coalition for inviting me. My role here is to explain why a company like CAP, we're a large industrial group in Chile. We do iron ore mining, steel production, steel processing, modular construction. Why a company like ours would be interested in participating in looking for solutions for mental health? Well, more than just going into the 5 points, technical points of the advantages of attacking, this is explaining why our company is investing in this. We believe that in CAP we are part of a complex system. We are integrated to other communities where we operate. And we always believe that we have to do more than just our business as usual, that we have to be part of the solution of the problems that we have in our communities. We've always believed that. In terms of environment, we operate in the north of Chile. We were the first mining company to operate 100% with desalinated water, to not affect the aquifers. We've had extensive social programs in the communities where we operate. And this issue, which before the pandemic for us was not on our radar. It didn't exist. It was a personal issue. But when the pandemic came and we saw the data coming in, the coalition started this work. Then CNN approached our company about doing this program. We thought in participating, dipping our feet in seeing how we could help and advance, looking for solutions that could have an important impact in our country. And then we see the work the coalition is doing. We're following it very closely because we believe this is something that should be replicated in the communities where we operate. And basically, that's a story. I mean, it's hard to understand. We're learning as a company. We don't have a lot of knowledge in mental health. That's why we're looking to learn. Basically, that's it.
This is the deficiency from the business sector.
Get to the point.
Excellent.
We get in
How do
short.
you, Benjamin, how do you project this? No, I want to.
Sí que me lo muevo.
Tu cuchara ya la papa.
Ven.
How do you do this?
La cosa importante.
Sí, así es.
Con sonido.
Un espacio para crear comunidad.
Okay, let's.
Un espacio para crear.
Let's go to the, ¿cómo se dice en inglés? A la carne o to the crux of the matter and to the point. So to be efficient like the rest of the panel, I could tell you a lot about Sanamente, which is the program that we are airing in CNN. But I think before the words.
El primer programa sobre salud mental en Chile, para hablar del bienestar humano y la salud mental desde diversas perspectivas.
¿Cómo están? Bienvenidos, bienvenidas a un nuevo capítulo de Sanamente. Aquí tratamos de ser un lugar de encuentro para todos nosotros que tenemos distintos dolores, distintas reflexiones sobre nuestra vida, sobre nuestra felicidad.
Nos entrega oportunidades para aprender a enfrentar las pérdidas en nuestra vida. Dificultades, tristeza.
Lamentablemente, no es como tu cerebro está acostumbrado a relacionarse. Neurociencia, educación emocional, técnicas para sentirnos mejor. Sanamente, una plataforma de conocimiento, compañía y una herramienta para la sociedad.
Sé que no hace falta llorar.
Porque nos hablan de que cuidar el cuerpo es también cuidar la mente.
Lo emocional, el ser capaz de abrirse a pensar y a conectarse con sus emociones.
Hay una técnica que se llama mano bajo la mano.
Creo que es muy importante el amor y la familia.
Queremos que este sea un lugar de encuentro, un lugar de abrigo, un lugar de calma, donde todos aprendamos a estar mejor.
Siempre en CNN Futuro.
Okay, that's the program, and I can tell you, a lot about the results. It has been great. We have done more than 100 episodes. We've had experts from Chile, Latin America, the US, Europe, Asia, everywhere. We are the greatest, blah, 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 blah. What I want to reflect today is in the power of, the connection of people. You think that this program was a program that everyone wanted to make, right? We were lucky enough or intelligent enough to beat the competition, and we were the ones who got the prize. The sad truth is no one wants to do this program at the origin. Now everybody wants to do it, of course, but at the origin nobody wants to do it. So if it's not for a miracle of the coalition of the human souls, which at the end of the day there is one person who should be here, it's called Paloma Avila, which is the person who is anchoring the program, and she should be here, so I'm taking her thunder and her credit. that has an inclination to do certain things that talks to me. That we were in a meeting this morning at the medical building and the medical facilities of Harvard, and I was talking that I'm here because I'm the product of therapy. When I was 21 years old, I had the privilege of having parents who were able to finance what I did not have money to do, which was a therapy, psychoanalysis. And so I have a moral obligation, I believe I have a moral obligation to give back in that sense and give to society and to others what I had the privilege of receive, which is, to be, I don't know, I can't say very happy, but very happier than I was, by all means, and more, grounded. And because of this, lunatic, one would say, that connected with another lunatic like Paloma, which connected with another lunatic like Claudia, which connected with other lunatics like Roberto and his partner Juan Enrique Rasmus, who lead the Fundación CAP and Fundación Rasmus, which again, do you think every company in Chile wanted to do this? And we had to put everybody in a list and say, all right, all of you, the best one is Rasmus and CAP. That's not true. They were the only ones. Now, of course, again, everybody now wants to do it. Everybody's knocking at our door and saying, hey, I've always been for mental health and always been for these types of endeavors. And, CAP and Rasmus, because they're a mining company, they don't fit too well in the profile. And I look at them and say, you guys, you don't understand the courage that it takes to be here in the origins. And then another lunatic like Fawaz, and another lunatic like Doris, and another lunatic like, Eduardo. And at the end of the day, we're here at Harvard celebrating, the lunacy of certain human beings. Yeah. Who make things happen. So I just wanted to reflect with all of you that at the end of the day, this is about the human soul. At the end of the day, we were able to convince and relevate what Maipú and Peñalolén are doing, because we didn't invent the wheel. They were trying to do it, and they because they are leaders of their communities, and it's a hugely complex work. If one of us thinks we have a complex work, look at the faces of Mayor Vodanovic and Mayor Leitao, and they have a very, very difficult situation in Chile with all of the issues that had been already very well addressed, the complexity, the social inequalities, the violence, the lack of trust, the penetration of the narco culture, etc. It's very, very difficult. So at the end of the day, what happened here, it's magic. It's really magic, what we have accomplished. And now we have a chance, we have a fighting chance of doing better things, escalating, doing and replicating it in other countries, in other municipalities, in other parts, because we can show that it works. But this is a testament, and with this to be efficient, I'm concluding, this is a testament to the human soul, and to all of you, and to all of the people who have contributed their grain of energy, of wisdom, so that this coalition can work. And this is a testament to the fact that if we all get together, there is hope. There is hope in the world. So kudos to you, kudos to everyone in the coalition. Thank you, Roberto, partner. Thank you, Juan Enrique, who is not here. Thank you, CAP and Fundación Rasmus. And I don't know, thank you, the universe, for making this happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You were extremely profound and moving and efficient. Thank you. We are very ahead of time. We can have just two questions and then to go to the next panel, because it's a very important panel. It's about the interventions that we are doing. So if you have questions, please raise your hands. If not, no, Melinda.
More of a comment than a question, Claudia. It's so great to see see. I hope your son's good.
He's great.
One of the things I want to say is that this was one of the most humbling experiences I have ever been a part of, is being able to be part of the inauguration, especially of the Pinaloin group and these incredibly brave politicians. I mean, I cannot tell you, there is no political gain in putting children and women's suffering up front. There's nobody cares. And it has to be leaders like you that keep those focused. And then to bring in the corporations and what I experienced, and I think where I feel hope and success from all of you is this, what I felt while I was there was that the community wants to heal itself. And I have been humbled in the presence of a Fawaz, who is, I think all of our guru. My partner now wants to marry him. But, but the reality is people heal people. And I think that we can map all the systems, which Fawaz has done brilliantly, and Ben, and really brought it to light. But when the community, like a mining company, I'm shocked, I gotta tell you. I'll sit here and say, you're kidding me. But that you're putting your people first, and that you're going out to your community and saying, we can heal each other through the television show, through the education of the community members, and embracing each other. And I will always remember the picture of those grandmothers on that playground. Nobody was touching those kids, and enlisting those women and the people in the community to heal each other is what's going to change the culture and make this project and Chile a success. And I just want to say thank you for the small part I was able to participate in, and say thank you, because it's brilliant. And I cannot believe you've already got that show on the road. I mean, we were just talking about it. So thank you all. Brilliant work.
I think anytime we start something that we see success, we get very excited and we get very energized that this is going to happen. And that's probably will happen here. But I want just a word of caution here. Unless we are persistent, unless we continue, it will not see the real results. We can't just touch and go. We just don't want to stop and say, we're successful, therefore let's move to something else. Whether it's coming from the industry, whether it's coming from the mayors here, this is not a one step. This is a journey. And it takes time, it takes energy, and it takes really leadership and will. It's not something that's going to happen over, someone asked a question whether can we measure something? Boy, if you have planted a seed and you start taking it out every time to check how much roots it has, it will die. Everybody knows this example. So it's really important when we have an intervention of this sort to keep it going and nourish it, constantly nourish it. And it's not only this generation. We need the younger generation to jump in and start working with us. Someone asked me about what's the role. Same with the media. Media is something very important to educate. You don't get educated on these things at schools. You don't get educated on these things frankly, many places require, can be places for education. School definitely is one of them, but media is very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, very. Yeah, of course.
Just a question and an invitation, maybe. The question is, why do you think that not other businessmen are doing things like you, like collaborating with public sector, with academia, and doing good things for the others? And the invitation is, I think that you have to show more what you are doing. CNN is helping now, but some people have the idea that businessmen are only focused on earn more money and more money and more money, and not about what happened with the country, with mental health issues and other social problems. So I think that is very necessary. CNN can help, but why not the other TV channels to show more that there are a lot of businessmen that are really commitment and working with others and helping to be like a better country. So the question is, why do you think that they're not happening with other businessmen? And if you agree or not, that we need to show, because some people have the idea that if you do good things, nobody have to know because it's better if nobody know. I think that we need to show that to the country, so that's my invitation for you.
I can talk from the corporate side. I think in Chile, as you say, the corporate companies are used to doing everything in a low-key way. Basically, more action than marketing. They don't want to be caught, doing advertising, like false advertisement of social work. So in that sense, maybe something has to change. We have to, showcase what we're doing a bit more. But I think companies are changing. Our company has changed in the last 6 years dramatically. You see the composition of our executives, of our boards, the way we are focusing social, environmental issues, our role in communities. Everything is changing and changing very quickly. So I think, we might have to showcase some things more, but I think, action is coming. And we're seeing it moving not only in our company, in lots of companies. We're not an exception, I believe.
In my case, it's very long. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to tell you in like a minute the issue, but just, very few words and concepts around it. We've been talking about climate change, and the whole issue of climate change is, why don't you do more? And then the other say, we have hope because, we're doing it, but you're not doing enough. And at the end of the day, we talked about yesterday about the hope, because guilt, it's a, feeling that blocks you. So if you're a politician, you need to rattle things, and you need to tell the business sector, you're not doing enough. Like you tell the oil companies, you're not doing enough. And then human being, when you're being, questioned, you retrieve and you block yourself and you say, how come I'm not doing enough? And you are whatever, a communist or a, leftist who wants to take my business away. You don't understand the problems that I have. So you know what? Shut up, and you politician go away. And you say, you shut up, you businessman, you egotistic, individualistic, brute. You are going to destroy this world and you don't care about anything. So it is a more complex thing. I think that the way to move the businesses is through human connection. At the end of the day, CAP moved because there is a human being called Roberto Andraca and a human being called Juan Enrique Rasmus. And they were able to, without the guilt, we did not go there and say, you Brutus, we say, come join us. But it's very difficult. It's because it's your obligation to rattle. I'm not saying that you should not do it, but it's important to see whether there is another way of, going into the problem and trying to engage the businesses rather than criticize them. Although, again, it's difficult. If you don't criticize them, they don't move. So it's egg and the chicken. And in the case of the media, it's very difficult because we have a system that is predicated upon ratings. And the rating is something that if you're successful, you have to do it in a way that will go into your amygdala, not this amygdala, in your brain that is trained to the fight or flight. It goes millions of years back when you had the tiger and you had to decide very fast whether you would run or you would engage. And that is adrenaline that is very fast. If I am able to show you something that will stick your attention and you'll be completely and literally stick to the screen, then I have a rating. If I have a rating, I have money because I have companies who are putting ad sales, dollars or pesos or whatever into my business model. So when I have Andraca and Kerry talking about healthcare, there is someone in a switch saying, cut them, cut them off, because we're going down in rating. And that means that we're getting less revenue, and less revenue is not a joke because then, Joe and Mary and Juan and Pedro there, they get fired. So this has to be against the tide where the mass media needs, as a business model, eyeballs. And the eyeballs, the only way you can attract them massively is through adrenalitic attention. So this is a new model. This is something that you have to go and talk to the prefrontal cortex that we had to develop over millions of years as well, and gave us the sense of judgment and the sense of soul and the sense of a lot of things that we are animals. At the end of the day, we are capable of the most brutal things and we're capable of the most beautiful things at the same time. So it is a very complex issue. It is tantamount to the issues that you face as politicians when we say, oh, you all politicians are whatever. And you say, no, we're not all. Have you heard about this and that and that? And we say, no, I haven't heard about it. I just, I'm making a blank conclusion about the politicians and you're making a blank conclusion about the media. If we're able to find, and with this I conclude, an intersection between the parts where you need, to the communication like the ones that we're giving here, and we are able to engage with that part of the politics that are really helping people in an honest way, this world is going to change. And again, what is the model? I don't know. Maybe serendipity, maybe connection of the souls, maybe the existence of Harvard. I don't know. But it's just, that it's very long, but I'm trying to...
Thank you. Susana. Yeah, Susana.
Very shortly. I think this works the two ways. Yeah, companies can show more, but the municipalities or the public sector has to invite the companies, include the companies in the activities they are doing. The same with the academy. All the parts of the coalition, different parts, they have to work together. So I think I think you are arranging some activity in Maipú, with the companies. So great. More of that, it had to happen. The companies are willing. The companies now are including ESG factors even in the strategies of the companies. So environmental, social, and governance. So they need to do also actions with the community. So it is both ways.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite the next panel, Professor Doris Sommer from the Faculty of Art and Science, and one of the key pillars in our coalition in terms of how to really not include on the borders at the center of the coalition arts. I would like to invite Mario Valdivia, the psychiatrist from Chile, former dean of Universidad Concepción, with the best laugh that you will hear ever. And Benjamin Miller from the medical school and from Empower platform that we are willing to have in Chile at the beginning of next year when we'll be entirely in Spanish. Thank you very much. And Doris, where you want to speak? They will present us some of the interventions that we already done in Chile and what we're expecting to do next year in the online basis.
I've been taking notes on my phone, inspired by these talks. And I want to say a couple of things. First, my thanks. My thanks mostly to Claudia, because all of these connections that we're appreciating now between city governments and industry and media and psychiatry, who has the courage and the vision and the charm to get us all together. So I could make a long list of thanks, and everybody will deserve the thanks on that long list. But first, really, to Claudia Bobadilla for bringing us together.
Thank you.
Okay, now I want to say a few things, and I hope I can be very brief, but all of you just signal me subtly or aggressively when I go on too long, because I get passionate about this. What we have been hearing is challenging and also promising, because complex systems are hard to disentangle. That's the lesson that we have learned, right? They're very hard to disentangle. But since they're hard to disentangle, we can take advantage of the tangle and make an intervention that responds to all of the points of the complex system. This is a mechanism that I learned to call acupuncture from Antanas Mockus. Antanas Mockus learned the term acupuncture from another very talented mayor, who is Jaime Lerner from Curitiba, Brazil. I don't know if you know Mockus. You know Mockus, okay. But the fact that the rest of us don't know Mockus is something that we can cure right now. Antanas Mockus was elected mayor of Bogota at the end of 1995. Does anybody know what Bogota was like in 1994? He started in 95. Do you know what 94 looked like in Bogota? A disaster. Here's a Bogotana who can tell us. 1.5 decades of corruption, violence, chaos. Everything was in the hands of the drug dealers. The U.S. State Department said no U.S. tourists can go to Bogota and think that they'll be safe. And the U.S. wasn't the only country that eliminated Bogota from the tourist circuit. So a very unlikely mayor with absolutely no experience as a politician, he was the president of a university, was elected because the desperate city said, well, let's try something else. And for months, the first month of 95, he didn't know what to do. And he kept asking his cabinet, what can we do? What can we do? Come up with an idea. Let's go after traffic deaths before we go after the traffickers. He loved metaphors. Let's go after traffic deaths. And finally, after a month, his Secretary of Culture came to him and said, you know what, boss? There's nothing to be done in this city. It's time to bring out the clowns. Now, anybody normal would feel offended. But Mockus was more an artist than normal. So he took the metaphor seriously. He said, that's a good idea. Let's bring out the clowns. So he fired 20 traffic police in the middle of the city. He didn't have to interview them. They were all corrupt. He fired 20 traffic cops from the middle of the city and hired 20 pantomime artists to make fun of infractors, okay? So anybody who could just give a tip to a cop instead of getting a ticket didn't want to be the laughingstock of a city which is very conventional, very uptight. Bogota is, not a Caribbean city. You didn't want to be a laughingstock, so people started looking at the traffic lights, watching the crosswalks, and in 1 year, traffic deaths were reduced by 51%. And the reduction continued over the time of the 10 years of his administrations. And people saw that it worked, so they came to him with new ideas, which he tried out. He brought them to the cabinet and said, well, what if we paint, fleeting stars every place that somebody dies on the street? And people saw one star painted on another star and another star, and they started noticing that this street is dangerous, that you have to watch the traffic lights, that you have to see the crosswalks. And behavior changed through that simple participatory art function. And he called that cultural acupuncture, which is, I say, a term that he learned, urban acupuncture from Jaime Lerner. So I want to propose, we've started already in the coalition, but I want to propose at an even greater level, pedagogical acupuncture. Because to change behavior, we have to form people differently. If we want to produce therapy for people who are already afflicted with mental illness, we are not attending to what causes the mental illness. So we may be doing Band-Aid therapy. Some people really are geared towards being mentally ill and need real clinical interventions very early and continuing. But some people are simply unhappy, even deformed, through the conventional pedagogies that we use, both in school and in the home. I spoke at a conference on violence in schools in Colombia, okay? It was on restorative justice in schools. And everyone on the panel was an expert in restorative justice, courts, et cetera, et cetera. I was the only teacher on the panel. And I looked out on the sea of teachers and I said, where does violence start in schools? Everybody was shy to answer me, so I answered myself. Where does violence start in schools? I said, maybe it starts in the fact that we sit children in military rows. We tell them not to ask questions, not to talk to friends, not to tap their feet, not to scribble, not to do anything, but to compete with each other when the teacher asks a question. I'm going to raise my hand first. I win, everybody loses. And then we want to ask, why are kids depressed? They're little balls of energy and we tell them not to do this, not to do that. And why are they aggressive? We're teaching them to be aggressive. When you have one kid give the right answer and there's only one answer per question, what are we teaching? The violence begins with conventional education. And there are other alternatives. Think about a Montessori alternative. That is an elite alternative today. People who have money can decide to send their kids to a Montessori school, to a Reggio Emilia school. Where does Montessori develop her method? People don't know this. Even my friends in the ed school don't know this. Where in Italy? In the slum of Rome. Not just in Rome, in the slum. How many people remember that Montessori developed her now elite method with the poorest kids who were being abandoned by their mothers during the day because the mothers had to go to work and the fathers were never to be found? And we know what works. We know that sitting kids at tables and making them manipulate things and asking each other questions and working together and then circulating when they're distracted and going to the bathroom when they have to go to the bathroom. We know that works. And yet we sit them down, nail them to the desk, and then we want to know why they're depressed. So we need a political program, an educational program, to make good education available to everyone because it doesn't cost any more money. It doesn't. It costs a different attitude, a different worldview, and a different respect for children and for their parents. Okay? I want to say that we have an important intervention in Kenya, in the big slum in Nairobi called Kibera, where half of the teenagers are clinically depressed, which is typical for most places in the world now. Half of the teenagers are clinically depressed. With pretext, with this intervention, there was a significant reduction in depression and anxiety after 1 week. Because people are just measuring psychological results, the measurement ended after a week, and then a month of follow-up, which confirmed the advance. But what we need to do is turn a psychological intervention into a pedagogical intervention, which is long-term. And this refers to what Fawaz said just recently. We can't think of short-term interventions. We have to think of behavioral changes that will continue the effect. All right, so I was going to say a little bit more about what we did in Maipú, and I can, you talk to teachers, you push a button, and they can go on for a long time. But I'm very, conscious of time now. So I just want to offer to you this this logo for pretexts. to show that conceptually it is multifaceted and responds to the complexity that we've been looking at with an acupuncture. If you just say to children, make art from this text, what are they doing? They're looking at a text which had made them anxious because they didn't understand it or it bored them or they have to read it and therefore they hate it, okay? They're looking at the text not as an obligation, not as a burden, but as raw material to make something that they want to make. What do you want to make from this text that you hate? A fashion show? A dance? A rap? A mural? Whatever you want to make, this is raw material for you. And then I can express myself because I'm playing with it. And then somebody looks at what I did and says, what does that mean? And I have communication. And I look at what other people did and I admire them. So a simple prompt, make art from this text that you hate, produces high levels of literacy, innovation, which means the ability to improvise. When Fawaz was talking about the human condition as adaptive, this is what we're talking about. We can train that capacity for adaptation by making art. Not because art is important for everyone, but thinking creatively and critically is. And we do that through making art. And then when we see that other people made different interpretations in different art, we say, wow, or different questions from the same text. We had a little experience of that yesterday, right? We say, I didn't think of that one. That's so cool. Let me talk to you. So we create high levels of literacy, innovation, and citizenship with one prompt. This is pedagogical acupuncture. And we can affect that whole messy but integrated map of complexity with good pedagogy. In school, at home, in businesses. We do this in businesses. We do this with city governments. The same protocol, because it's that obvious, that simple, and that much fun. And when you have fun, you want to be with people. Isolation is also about not wanting to be with people, right? So that's what I want to bring to this coalition, not only at the level we're already collaborating, but really as an offer to integrate different sectors, different populations, with a protocol that everyone can recognize as useful to them and to the community. Okay? Thank you so much.
Good evening. Well, I am Mario Valdivia. I'm a child psychiatrist. I work at the University of Concepcion, which is about 300 kilometers south from Santiago. And I was honored with the invitation to be part of this coalition. And I have to say, when I say, okay, they're bringing me because I'm a psychiatrist, they're talking about mental health, well, business as usual. But then I realized what a huge things we are involved in. Because we're not just talking about doing specific interventions. We're not talking about just doing prevention. We're talking about seeing life in a different way, which is not that different, actually. What we're trying to do here is to rebuild community, to be aware that everyone, that every institution, that every single person, that every piece of culture has to do something with our community. And I think that probably if we start caring for people, respecting people, and then admiring people, we will build a better community. And then this intervention will be most likely needless Because what we're doing from psychiatry is getting here very late, trying to repair, which we don't, things that have been going wrong. I'm not saying that there are no clinical issues. There are clinical issues and we need to address them, but they are very little in amount. What we do have is problems. And happiness is not a disease. It doesn't need a treatment. It needs a new way of life. And I think that is what we have to keep in mind, even though I will talk just about a specific intervention, which is quite clinically. So it's kind of ironically. Well, I move forward because I don't have that time. You already know about the coalition. And what I'm going to tell you is a specific program that we developed in the Municipalidad of Maipú, and we hope to develop also in Peñalolén, in which we train primary care professionals in order to improve their ability to handle a very huge problem in the teenager population. And why we did that? Why in a prevention program you're thinking about training people in clinical skills? Well, because if we do right the prevention, we will have a better community. We will have less problems, but that will be in a period of time. And in the mid period, there will be a rise of consultation. And we were really aware and really concerned, well, wouldn't be the primary care center, the COSAM, which is a mental health specific center, wouldn't be overwhelmed with this rise of consultation. We need to provide them with new tools in order to develop a better way to handle these problems. So we focus on one specific problem, which is suicidal behavior in adolescents. And why suicidal behavior? Well, because it's very important. The rate of suicidal behavior in teenagers, non-lethal suicidal behavior, we're talking about attempts in Chilean adolescents, are quite high, between 10 to 20%. Different surveys that we have been developing in different parts of the countries are quite consistent in showing that in between 1 among 5 to 1 among 10 children, adolescents have tried at least once to attempt against their life. So that's a huge number. So it's impossible to find an answer to that problem thinking about secondary care level by specialists. We need to strengthen the ability of our primary care people in order that they handle this problem in a better way. So how we can do that? Well, training them, working with them. And then we were blessed because I don't know if Tomas chose the team for a specific reason, but it's a wonderful group of people. And these people, they were eager to work with us Friday evening after their regular period of work. Working online with these people that from Concepcion, sitting 300 miles south, were telling them things and we're really participating. And so that's what we did. And just to show you, our objective was, to strengthen the technical tools in our professionals in primary care. We're talking about general practitioners, we're talking about psychologists, nurses, social workers, people that work in primary care, and that they know the community. They're really involved into the community. We sometimes, specialists, tend to forget the richness of the primary care work because they know their environment. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you, for instance, in Concepcion, my city, the psychiatric unit, it's up in the hill, really far away from everybody. While the people in the primary care center, they live. They are part of the community. And children go to schools there. They don't go to school up in the hill where we are. Children, adolescents, they play football, we call it soccer, you do, on the streets there, not up in the hill. So we have to go to primary care center and then put the technical knowledge in order to prove their ability to make diagnostics, to do treatment, and just to refer the very specific cases that will need secondary care. And that's what we tried to do with the group in Maipú. How we did it? Well, I lived in Concepcion. I couldn't make this group of 28 people travel to Concepcion 3 times. It's very expensive. I could have traveled to Santiago, but I said, let's do it in a different way. We did the first session. It was I went to Maipú, worked with them in the first session, but then the other 3 sessions were online. And we gave them material to read, we gave them exercises to practice, and we made them talk to each other. They make group things to reflect, and then we met every 2 weeks online and talk about why they read, their opinions, their experiences. Does it make sense? Do you see it in a different way? What do you do when you face these cases? We make role playing, and then we gave them also an assignment. It was like a case that they have to work in group. And we made a group with different professionals just to resemble what they do in primary care. Not only physicians, not only psychologists, but working together, but taking in account the resources of community. We took a pre-test, not a pre-text, but a pre-test in order to know their basic knowledge. And then after the training, we did an outcome survey or test in order to see if they improve. And we were happy. This is actually only the first outcome, probably the less important. Just, this is the final score of the students. Let me tell you, for those who are not from Chile, in Chile, the scores go from 1 to 7, being 7 like 100% accomplishment. So those are the final grades of our students. In order to get the final grades, we get 2 tests, 2 outcome tests, and also group work. And they get very, very good grades. You see, quite a lot got the maximum score, 7, and everyone passed. The lowest grade to pass was a 5, which is a high level in Chile because it has post-grad standards, okay? And everyone passed. We're very happy. But also, we compared the results in the pre-test and the outcome test, and it was very good, In the pre-test, they had 69% of accuracy in their answers, which is quite good. Very good, probably, but a number were under the approval rate. And on the test, the post, we had 95% of accuracy in their answers, which is very, very good. And everyone has an important rise in their outcome. So yes, we can say, at least they learn. But then we have a new question, which we won't be able to answer today. Is it useful? We have to see it later. We have to go back to Maipú and ask them, is it useful? These things you learned make sense? You can use them? And then we have a third question that we won't ask to the primary care workers, but to the community. Does it help you? Because yes, we think it works. We have tried before. But we need to know that what we taught and what they learned is really useful in their reality. Because knowledge is built not only from what we write in papers. There's another very important source of knowledge that is experience. And experience is not only in the professionals, but experience is in the community. And I think that probably one of the outcomes of this enterprise that we are all entangled is to build a new way of generating knowledge, not only based on our researchers, which are very important, and I do research, but also the knowledge that we build talking to community, learning from their own cultures, because, we are starting to realize that many of the things that now we have proved are useful, people were doing them before. You didn't know the reason why they work, but they did work. And when we rebuild community, what we're doing is we're putting together enterprises, companies, academics, community, government. But if you think of small communities, maybe 2 or 3 centuries ago, they were all together. The communities were smaller, but they had to work together in order to survive. Well, we're trying to do this again, working together in a larger scale. Yeah. So I am going to finish now. Thank you so much. This is a different picture of this, but I have to thank you all. Oh, come on, the people that were working with me. They're not here, but Pablo, and he's a psychologist. He did part of the training, and 2 residents from our postgrad program in child psychiatry. And we're trying, because we think that when we do that, we teach a little bit, but we learned a lot. And believe me, we have learned a lot, and we want to share that with our students to make them part of that. Because if we are trying to think in a different way, but we need the young people to figure out a new way of thinking, because there's the real change. So that's why we're working with them. Thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to be very brief, and I'm going to start with a question to you, because I feel like when we get into the realm of what works and what doesn't work, I want to bring it back to you and your own stories. Imagine for a second that those phones that we've all got in our pockets ring, and it's a loved one, and they're describing a crisis that they're in. Do you know what to say to them? It's a family member, it's a neighbor. Do you know how to respond? Do you know where to tell them to go if they need help? Just think on that. All I'm basically going to say to you today is that we as a society, as a community, should be equipped to help each other. Just as my colleague just mentioned, what's old is new. And one of the oldest forms of helping people heal is to be there for them. People have a strong desire to be heard. And when we equip people with skills to help each other, it changes the way that we interact, it changes our society, and it changes us all for the better. So I'm going to skip through all of this. This is the reality of most people when they're trying to get help. They are confronted with this harsh reality that there's a system that doesn't really work for them. Mental health should not be this ridiculous door that you have to jump 25,000 feet in the air to get into. It should be available to every one of us. And it doesn't matter where in the world you live, that this is a problem for all of us. And most of the reasons that we have this as a problem is because we don't have enough people to meet us where we are. Well, my friends, we have plenty of people, and we're all in this room. I'm going to skip to the end here. So I describe our field, mental health in general, as experiencing a crisis-opportunity. It's a crisis and an opportunity. It's a crisis because it's so poorly done, most across the world, that we have to do something to make it better. It's an opportunity because never in most of our lifetimes have people been so comfortable talking about mental health. From our youth to the elders, we are all now talking about this, whereas before it was never something that we talked about, ever. It was the uncle in the back room that we just ignored at family holidays. Now it's something that we are having, 4.5 hours of conversation on today. It's a big deal, and we're all embracing it. This is what we do. This is the easiest slide I can use to show you what we're working on. So in partnership with Vikram Patel, who has done work all over the globe, we have created a platform using technology to train all of us to deliver evidence-based psychosocial interventions with one another. This basically means that we ourselves, and my colleague used this term earlier, we have become the new first responders for mental health. Winston Churchill famously said that out of intense complexities, intense simplicities emerge. Well, this is a simple thing, my friends. It's a simple thing. To know how we show up for each other in a way that's been proven by the science, to use the technologies to make it easy for us to all have access, this is the future. It is arguably the most revolutionary and disruptive thing we could do for mental health. There's nothing magical about the fancy degrees that most of us have in this room. There's nothing magical about the clinics that we show up in. What's magic are the relationships that we have with one another. Today is World Mental Health Day. I had the good fortune to be with Selena Gomez and her team last week in Los Angeles. And I want to use this as an example in closing because this woman committed to put $100 million into mental health. She created a beauty line to do just that. And today, all the sales of her beauty products go directly into mental health. When we were working with their team and talking about, well, what are the things that we could invest in? It was all about the youth. And what do youth want? They want to know how to help each other. A colleague once told me that once we realize something isn't working, it is unethical to proceed as if it is. My friends, it is not working what we're doing for mental health. With respect to all the tremendous work that has been done before us, we are at a place in our world where we have to go bigger and we have to think differently. We have to embrace new strategies that are far beyond the comfort zone of most of us than what we've done in our lives, because it's what people deserve. In closing, this is what we would call in the environmental space as a desire line or desire path. There's obviously a sidewalk that's been built, but then there's a place that people walk. It's different from what we've built. We've got them everywhere. You can walk around even on this beautiful campus and find them, okay? In our world for mental health, we have built a bunch of sidewalks that people don't use. They choose their own path. And instead of simply putting a Band-Aid over a broken crack in the sidewalk, we need to bust up these sidewalks and repave them all together. And that begins with what we can do with one another. Thank you.
So much. What a great last panel. Thank you very much to each one of you for the depth, for the passion, and for being so considerate with the time as well. Thank you very much. Due to the time, I want to invite Professor Brian Trestal for the closing remarks. For those that doesn't know Professor Trestal, he is the faculty chair of the Advanced Leadership Program, which has been the nest of this project. So thank you very much, Professor, for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Claudia, for this convening. Thanks to the David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies for also hosting. No sabía que necesito hablar en español hoy día. It's been a while. My last class in Spanish was here. I took las telenovelas de Latinoamérica. Unfortunately, las telenovelas no pueden ayudarme hoy día. In addition to the Advanced Leadership Initiative, which brings together senior leaders from across the world, many of whom are here today, for a year of finding their purpose, what we've discovered over the course of the last 15 years is that ALI fellows, when they're here at Harvard, are the cross-pollinators, como abejas de la universidad. They find the places where people are working on similar issues and don't know one another. And what I remark about the work that Claudia and the coalition has done, and is important for any kind of system change, is bringing together the same kind of representation that has been in this room on the panel today. That capacity to identify people of like mind and goodwill and create the space for them to learn, to work together, to trust one another, to experiment and to innovate and to pioneer is the most important thing that ALI fellows can learn while they're here and to bring to the problem and the context that they want to work on. What you've also seen, and what I've been scribbling notes on all sorts of different things, that systems change begins with identifying what are those constraints and the bottlenecks. Why do we have the lack of capacity? How can we widen the capacity? How can we change the parameters and the levers? But more important than the system change for the long term that I observe with social change makers and social entrepreneurs is the capacity to shift the mindset of a problem. And so we've got the ideas that you might have pedagogical acupuncture, that we might rethink the way that we teach young children as a root cause of their social and emotional challenges, or that you might have mental health CPR as an idea where all of us can take the responsibility of every one of us in ways that radically expand the capabilities and bring that kind of beginner's mindset to the expertise which has built the systems and the sidewalks that Ben so eloquently said are just broken and in the wrong place. So I just want to commend Claudia and the work that you are doing to bring this experiment. Empower has had another ALI fellow very involved with it, and I know that this is a passion for a number of our colleagues, and it's just a tremendous example of the potential for taking a year to step back and to launch forward. So I don't want to keep you any longer, but it's been a privilege to listen and learn along with you and to observe the work that you're doing and will continue to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Apologize for the delay, and let's have dinner together. Thank you.
Dinner, c'est toi.